Hi, my name is Maria, and I'm 13. Have your parents ever been ashamed of you? So much that they don't even let their friends see you, or other people's friends, or anyone at all? I know some guys who would be happy about this, but gosh, this is actually disgusting. Watch the video till the end, and you will find out why my parents hid me from everyone. At first, everything was okay. I am the daughter of a writer and a cool businesswoman, and they were even proud of me. Of course, an excellent student goes to a music school and sings. What could go wrong? I was so happy. Besides, not far off was a vocal competition for adults in which I took part. One day, something went wrong during a rehearsal. In the middle of the song, my voice turned into a weird screeching bark. While I was trying to figure out what came over me, the other children laughed, thinking it was a joke. But I wasn't joking. The next time I barked, I was answering at the blackboard during maths. This time, the whole class laughed, and I was kicked out of class for disorderly conduct. I couldn't explain what was wrong, and so I got a punishment, and my classmates gave me a nickname, Dog Girl. Nobody wanted to believe that I wasn't joking, that I was scared myself. The barking happened by itself at the moments when I least wanted it. Can you imagine what it would be like to become a social outcast for something that you cannot control? It only got worse. I barked during singing again. The class was interrupted. Everyone was lying on the floor laughing. Mrs. Casina got angry and suspended me from classes, I quote, until I start behaving decently. It was a total fail. I came home and burst into tears right on the doorstep. I told my mom and dad everything. They said that everything was simple. I just needed to stop barking at people and apologize to the teacher. Well, at least I could apologize. I actually went to Mrs. Casina the next day to apologize. I didn't know on that day people from television came to our school. It turned out that they were recording a lesson with students from elementary school. I wanted to leave quietly, but Mrs. Casina noticed me. She herself asked me to come and began to praise me in front of the camera, even though we had a fight quite recently. I was deeply touched, and when they asked me what I thought about the music school, I warmly praised it, and Mrs. Casina and the choir, and said that it was the best school in the whole city. And then, I started barking again. I don't know how it happened. I talk, and suddenly, I barked just like a dog. Everyone froze in amazement, and I couldn't even stop. I barked, and then the kids started barking like me. They thought it was a joke. The shooting was hastily stopped. Mrs. Casina stared at me. I realized that it was a complete fiasco. She would never forgive me for this. And my parents didn't forgive me either. When I got home, Mom silently got up from the table and left. Dad asked what the hell I was doing. It turned out that they were watching the live program that was recorded at school and saw me barking. My teacher, all the students from the music school, my parents, a bunch of my friends, everyone saw me barking loudly in front of the camera, and everyone thought that I was fooling around on purpose. Do you know what my reaction to this was? I barked. At that moment, I was barking every day. And I didn't only bark, but also twitched as if I were a puppet. When that happened, my mother got up and left the table. My father was angry, asking what I was trying to achieve. But I didn't want anything. Couldn't they see that I felt bad? I needed a doctor. Mom thought that I needed discipline, not a doctor. But Dad eventually took me to the clinic. There, I was referred to a psychologist, diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome. This is a disease where you get twitches and all sorts of uncontrollable sounds come out, swearing, moaning, or barking. Since it was a disease, it wasn't my fault. No, even better, so it could be cured? As it turned out, no. I shouldn't have hoped for a miracle pill. I was prescribed with light sedatives and told to wait, like the symptoms would subside on their own when I grow up. If I grow up. Because I was going to die right at that moment if I couldn't get into the competition. I fell into real hysterics for several days, mourning my musical career and completely forgot that my parents and I were invited to a wedding. On day X, I heard them whispering, deciding whether to take me with them or not, and I wanted to cry from longing. I had to prove that I was normal. As soon as I arrived, I immediately took the bull by the horns. I was charming. Everyone was smiling at me more than at the bride, and I saw how my parents casted proud glances at me. That was a success. Has your self-confidence ever let you down? A complete collapse awaited me. The guests asked me to sing for the newlyweds. I felt my muscles begin to twitch, but I stubbornly agreed, hoping just to overcome it. I went to the microphone, looked into the warm, attentive eyes of the happy newlyweds, and I began to bark. At first, the guests thought it was a joke and laughed, but I just froze with horror. I kept barking and couldn't stop. Dad grabbed me by the collar, and my mother turned everything into a joke. You understand, these children. Dad put me in the car, and I spent the whole evening alone, crying in terrible loneliness. We were silent all the way home. I timidly asked if my dad would come to my performance at the competition. What competition? Would you behave like that? My mother answered angrily, and I suddenly went mad. I had been preparing for this performance for a year, and nothing would stop me. Not my parents, not the stupid barking. I was gonna prove them all, especially mom and dad. On the day of the performance, I arrived at school very early, but not in order to put on makeup or rehearse. Instead, I locked myself in the toilet and began to bark, loudly, uncontrollably, choking and twitching my arms and legs. I hoped that if I could get everything out before the performance, then I wouldn't twitch on stage. No, it didn't help. Just like at the wedding, at first, everything was okay, but then I barked and I got hysterical. I cried, barked, twitched. I was taken off the stage. Someone called my parents, and I couldn't even stop them. And then, shaking with horror, I was sent to the infirmary. My parents took me away, but it would be better if they had left me there. For the next 3 days, they didn't speak to me. I cried and barked. And I couldn't even hope that my dad and mom would forgive me. I ran away, disgraced myself. I was not a child, but a disappointment. That is why I was so surprised when mom and dad offered to visit one of my friends. Like, they were going to leave the city for a business meeting, and they didn't want me to be bored without them. Maybe I was forgiven? I would have believed that, but I barked all the way to my friend's house, and each time, I saw how my dad twitched and how my mother frowned. As soon as Louise put on her headphones, I got out of her house and went to my place. And you know what? They had a party. A big party with champagne, cakes, and music. They just hid me from that. I understood that they were ashamed of me, but only at that moment I realized how much. They just decided to pretend that I didn't exist. My own parents. I looked at them having fun through the window and shook with shame and resentment, and instead of sobbing, a stupid barking was coming out of my mouth. In tears and constantly twitching like a puppet, I called my psychologist. A psychologist drove up to pick me up within half an hour and realized that I was literally thrown out of my own house like a naughty puppy. The party was over as soon as we entered. The psychologist tried to talk to my parents softly. Mom and dad blushed and began to hiss all sorts of threats. The guests nervously gathered to the exit, and something broke in me, and I began to spit out curses, one after the other, unable to stop. I couldn't control it, like the barking, but at that moment, I even liked it, because my parents were just in horror from so much swearing. The psychologist threatened to call the social services, and I don't know how it would have ended if the doorbell had not rang. There was Mrs. Casina behind the door. The scene surprised her, but she assured that she wouldn't interfere. She just wanted to apologize. After my disastrous speech, she was explained that my barking was a disease, not a bad joke. Of course, she couldn't blame me for that, blah blah. She wanted to continue our classes and prepare a new song for the competition by next year. The psychologist said that music would allow me to regain control of my body, And the parents, they seemed ashamed by that situation. The scandal was hushed up, and my parents went with me to the next meeting with the psychologist. But that's another story. Give us the thumbs up and subscribe to our channel.